All right, guys. So Beth, Andy, we just heard from OpenAI, and this is day 2 of their 12 days of OpenAI. And today was sort of a continuation of yesterday's when they released O1 out of the preview, as well as something else they talked about, ChatGPT Pro. But for now, let's focus on O1, because what they just said today, and we got the answer right at the end, which is like, kind of, where is this right now? They said it's in alpha. And maybe even before that, there was just a few partners that they were working with to do this. So this is reinforcement fine tuning. RFT is what they were referring to it. They said they're excited for it to launch publicly early next year. They added that at the end as well. And they also talked about, for this alpha program that is going to be released out to people who apply, there's going to be application process, and they call that the RFT research program. And for educational, universities or other research groups that might feel like they can come up with 100 new ideas, like they were just saying, they would be able to get access potentially. They said there would be limited spots potentially before this goes public. So we had a lot of people joining us live today, which is awesome. And some of the questions came up right away, which is like, so this is just a preview of something that's coming out next year? Well, sort of, for the vast majority of us. But what I think it's really cool, and I'd love to get your guys' quick feedback on this, just these are our live thoughts on this, is that this is, really showing where the potential impact in areas like healthcare, finance, and other areas, I mean, education, holy moly, can be with a powerful model. They said it yesterday that the O1 models are the most powerful models out there, as opposed to your like GPT-4o type models, whatever. The O1s are more powerful. So this is interesting to me. I mean, this is like one of those things, like, it's not a toy I can play with, but I'm just super glad that the right people are going to be able to play with this toy. Like, I can't wait to hear what they have to say, or I can't wait to talk about this on a Wednesday when we do our news show. What was your initial feedback, Beth or Andy?
Yeah, I would like to just mention that training LLMs to, produce outputs is a well-known process. And what we saw here is a demonstration of taking a very advanced reasoning model and training it on specific domain deductive reasoning. So it's getting information and it's having to then apply its reasoning skills. And the grading part of this platform that they've developed is dependent on the supply of a set of training examples where the answer is known. So the person who was there in the room from Berkeley, that person actually contributed significantly. The heavy lifting wasn't in giving new training examples to the model that already knows how to reason, but it was somebody developing a training set that's, in addition, it's a fine-tuning training set, not the original pre-training data set, but it's a fine-tuning data set. And so I think that what that does is it limits the usefulness of this to a select group of high-end research kinds of applications where you can actually generate that. And that, while the actual demo or fine tuning of O1 might only take days, preparing the examples and making sure that the data is right, and that the correct answer is in those where it's sometimes ambiguous what the correct answer is, that's hard. That's the heavy lifting here. So if you have a company or you have a domain of knowledge where you can generate such a thing, just know that OpenAI is waiting for you to use their most advanced reasoning model to do fine tuning of that and get to a really competent thing. But there's also open source models out there that could be fine tuned in the same way. The same kind of pipeline could be done. And OpenAI though has done a nice thing, I think, which is to build a pipeline for that process for anybody who wants to use the O1 model.
Right. I think what we've seen here is what they've been talking about for a while, which is that we're going to see ASI before we're going to see AGI. And this ASI meaning artificial super intelligence, meaning it's smarter than humans in a particular narrow way, versus artificial general intelligence, where it's smarter than humans in all of the ways that you can generalize about. And And I think you're right, Andy, that this is for that the people who will use this first will be in research labs who already have that kind of data set because they're working that way. But they said that there are custom graders, right? Like it does not have to be that. If you in the example that they gave, if you have a data set where there is some information and one right and many wrong answers, that's a data set that could be used in this. So I think that broadens it out. Yeah, Brian, you're going to push back.
I am. I'm going to push back a little bit because I don't think that's the only place you're going to see this. Now, costs may be prohibitive, so we don't know the cost yet. Somebody was saying in the comments, "Well, is this just going to be part of the $200 a month that they announced yesterday?" Don't know the answer to that. They didn't mention that today. However, if we put aside cost prohibitive side of it and say that this is generally available, I think you're going to see this used by teachers almost immediately, because that's an area where you have teachers every single day across the world. I mean, certainly in the States, but across the world, who are doing grading, who are using some sort of matrix where there are definitive right and wrong answers. It's not creative writing. There's like actual right and wrong answers. They have mountains of data that they could probably put together fairly quickly or with limited uplift to create what you were saying, Andy, the hard work, which is the actual training of what is actually right and wrong. And I think you will either see this, you will see some really innovative teachers who see this as a amazing potential for them personally. But I think in short order, you will start to see entire school, not superintendent, school districts start to employ this. If maybe not, what I think it's going to happen. It's going to be like a history teacher, definitive right, wrong answers. This happened on this date or didn't happen on this date, right? That's an easy thing to trade on. And a lot of that history might already be in the data set, right? But maybe there's some reinforcement, fine tuning that needs to happen because of whatever the reason was for that. Okay. So it might be somebody who's really interested. Then the history department says, wow, that's really helpful. That just took a huge lift off of our already burdened teachers who are having to do this repetitive manual process of grading. And oh boy, now they just have to monitor the system and not do it. And I think very quickly you see this trickle up. So it's going from the teacher to the department to the school to the district. And I think this
I'm
could
going to
potentially
push
be
back
the end
on
of
that.
grading.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that, Brian, because the example that you used, history, does not require reasoning. You don't need to reason on the facts of history, right? There is a correct answer. So it's not deductive reasoning. Okay, so give me an example of something that happened in the past about the facts about which we know that requires a reasoning approach rather than a recollection approach.
Compare and contrast the events of this and that are known facts, and explain with critical thinking why these two events in history that have nothing to do with each other are similar and dissimilar. I think there's a reasoning that would go into that if you used O1 to get an answer, but there's probably a matrix-like answer that would come to that that's based off the facts of history. So that would be my first guess.
Yeah, so I think that there probably would be an advantage from a reasoning trained model's perspective to, if we did O1 on that question, compare and contrast, it would probably perform better than 4.0, just because its reasoning capabilities are better. But part of the reasoning has to come from interpretation of what your request is, right? I need to figure out a plan to address this question, and that's the thinking that goes on behind the scenes before the response is generated. But I still think that fine-tuning a model for that purpose may not be as beneficial. I think I might get the same output because of the existing historical knowledge of the O1 original pre-training set. I might get something very similar there, and the fine-tuning wouldn't really give me the same advances that I would get from the complex reasoning required for sort of genetic diagnoses.
And that's because you don't live in Florida, Andy. And in Florida, there could be a desire to reinforce and fine tune historical events. I shouldn't say that. I love you. Love Florida, home state. I've been here for many years, but you're allowed to poke it at the places you live. And so that's my poke. No, I mean, hopefully that's for nefarious reasons, right? We hope we don't see that. But I see your point. I see your point that, like, what is this something that would require the reinforcement fine tuning aspect of O1? You're probably right. Maybe history was a poor subject to go into. Regardless, I do see this being valuable in education. And I guess my initial point, even though you're correct to say it's sort of a poor example of that, but just in general in education, you guys are kind of saying like, oh, this might just be like research labs. And I guess my initial pushback was, no. I actually could see people using this, assuming that the cost is not prohibitive. I could see people actually tinkering and using this and trying to get, I mean, we saw with their example, it was a difference of 38%, or at one was one from 38 to 43. It wasn't like 38 to 79%, achievement. So like we're talking about incremental improvements, even with the data set that they used in that example, which I kind of love because they didn't make it out to be this like amazing, gonna solve all. You even heard the expert from Berkeley say, I think used as a hybrid in combination with our other, and he used a technical term, tools.
Bioinformatics,
Yeah, bioinformatics, that this could be very helpful to us. It's just another tool for us to use. But he said it himself. It's not a replacement, certainly not at this point, for the procedure the way they do it right now. So anyway, that's my thing. Look, I'm excited for the right people to have this. It's not going to be me. I probably will have no need for it. I barely can think of ways to use O1 a lot of times. So reinforcement fine tuning O1 is probably not going to be for me. But this is very exciting to see this because I think we'll all learn. And again, the guy from Berkeley said it as well, that it's helpful to see the reasoning that it went through, the model went through to a tribe. And that is so valuable. And I think we'll all be able to learn from that reasoning, right, Beth?
Right, because when the tools are reasoning, they're actually leaving. They tend not to, like, you have to click on it to see the reasoning pattern that they're showing. But it's so interesting to see the processes that they're going through in order to reach the conclusion that they're reaching. Because finding the wrong answer is, for a researcher, as instructive as finding the right answer. Right, all of it is data. The other thing that I find really exciting about this, and I'm always like, this is a lovely present, and you know what else could be great? So I'm gonna say this is a lovely present, but I can't wait until it's multimodal, because now it starts to get to the fine tune of being able to see things on a scan, and we've already seen that there's so much advancement in it. Right, because it's able to discern, just visually, it's able to discern at a much finer level than a human. But now, what are the patterns that we're able to determine based on like using that? And now, can we create a golden fine-tuned model that can give people answers?
That's a great example, because what happens with AI interpretation of medical imaging is that it gets things that a human reviewer isn't focusing on, and determines correlations between elements of the scan that we can't even perceive. And so it requires some reasoning to determine what actually is interrelated here in this image. That humans are focused on one thing: is there a tumor in this image or not? That's classification in AI. Does this match a tumor model or no? That's a binary kind of decision. But looking at a scan and thinking about it in a holistic kind of health scan kind of way would require advanced reasoning. And you'd want to train it on examples that have like little indicators that the normal radiologist wouldn't be looking at, that would actually be informative about some correlated or uncorrelated disease that's being represented in the image.
Yeah, I love that. And I think we'll end on this, I guess, unless you guys have anything else to add, because we do try to keep these short as far as just our initial thoughts, reactions. Like we heard it with you guys, so this is where our brains are on it right now. We can't wait to hear more from what you guys, anybody that's listening, I said what you think about it. Certainly put it in the comments after this video goes out. What I was going to say is, from a hopeful standpoint, like I was saying, I'm excited about this getting into the hands of people. And I'll just tell you a quick personal story. I've mentioned before that my mom passed, I believe, on the show. My mom passed in 2008 from cancer, and they would still qualify it as breast cancer, but that's because the initial diagnosis 6 years prior was breast cancer, although not necessarily what my mom ultimately passed from. It was a spread of cancer. Anyway, the reason I bring it up is not to be a downer, but is actually to repeat something my mom said. Let's see, this would be around 2002. And she said when she initially beat the first round of cancer, because she actually did go into remission, she said, Brian, my goal is to outlast long enough. I truly believe there's a solution. There's a cure for cancer. And I said, I'm with you. And sadly, she didn't outlast, at least for her particular diagnosis. Of course, there's many different types of cancer. And she passed in 2008. But I have to say with a lot of confidence that if we fast forwarded to today, December 6th of 2024, my mom was in this same position and she was saying she beat the first round, I would have to say I feel very confident that she would actually be right today. And I think that's because of what we're seeing coming out of these language models, what we're coming out of this AI assistance of our truly best of the best when it's in medical and other areas. And yesterday, when they were talking about the proteins, and gosh, so much of it is over my head. I just try to keep up like everybody else and everything. But I go, isn't this amazing that this is going to be in the hands of some of the smartest and brightest people we have around the world? And hopefully, if they want to use this, they'll be able to use this as much as they want to solve big problems. And, maybe, just maybe, that means 6 years from now, we have in fact cured diseases that had previously been untouchable. And so it's really, really exciting to me. I love these types of, announcements. It makes me excited for the future for sure. Okay. Anything else from you guys before we wrap it up?
Join us Monday. We've got great shows. If you just learned of us here, we do a live stream Monday through Friday from at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, different AI topic each day. And so on Monday, we'll be here at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and then again at 1 p.m. for the day 3 drop, because they're taking the weekend off.
That's what I was just about to ask you. I was going to confirm with you that because you told me that, I didn't realize that. So we will not have a day 3 tomorrow. It'll be Monday before we have day 3 of the 12 days of OpenAI. So come back and enjoy us all week. And then obviously at the 1 o'clock to catch up with whatever they're going to announce next. So far, I think they're 2 for 2. And the dad jokes to end it on. So I guess they're going to have to keep doing that.
I'm here for the dad jokes. I want them.
Else said in the comments too.
Yeah. I want them worse and worse each time, and I feel like they're starting to really hit that target. All right, thanks everybody.
See you guys.